Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Dental Board of California quarterly board meeting. My name is Dr. Thomas Stewart, and I am the president of the board. Today is Thursday, May 14, 2020. This board meeting is being held via WebEx. Pursuant to the provisions of Governor Newsom's Executive Order N2520, dated March 12, 2020, neither a public location nor teleconference locations are provided for this meeting. For all those who wish to participate, please log on to the WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code will be provided as part of your connection to the meeting. And I want to ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. Since this meeting is being conducted via WebEx, I will ask all board members and speakers to announce themselves by name before speaking for clarity of the official record. All board members are able to unmute themselves to speak during the meeting. Please place yourself back on mute when not speaking to reduce the background noise for all participants. Following such online meeting etiquette will ensure the best audio quality for everyone. During each call for comments from board members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. This is an official business meeting of the Dental Board of California. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator will explain the process for providing public comment shortly. When called upon, the moderator will unmute the microphone of the individual, and they will have 2 minutes to make public comment. The host will audibly announce when 15 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 2 minutes will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with testimony already provided, please just state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. I would now like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during this WebEx meeting.
Thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. So when the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on. And my co-moderator, I believe, will show a visual of what that will look like in just a moment. Members of the public can then indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone, and then the individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your question or typing your intent to make a comment in the box, please make sure the question is directed at the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. And finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, just a friendly reminder to mute their microphones. And if I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder, or I may just mute the panelist's microphone in the interest of eliminating that background noise or feedback. That concludes my description of how public comment will be handled, Board President, so I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask the Board Secretary to please call the roll.
Good morning. This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll. Burton?
Burton here.
Burton present. Chan?
Chan present.
Chan present. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld present.
Felsenfeld present. Lai?
Present.
Lai present. Laren?
Laren present.
Laren present. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie's here.
Mackenzie present. Medina?
Present.
Medina present. Morrow?
Morrow present.
Morrow present. Olagi?
Olagi present.
Olagi present. Pacheco's present. Stewart?
Stewart present.
Stewart present. You
present.
You present. Board President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 2, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the February 27 through 28, 2020 Dental Board of California meeting minutes. You've all had a chance to read those minutes. Is there any board member discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion and a second? Please unmute your phone, identify yourself, and make a motion or a second.
This is Morrow. Move to accept minutes as presented.
Chan second.
Thank you. The motion to accept the minutes is before us. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? And DCA moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Board President. I will now be activating the question and answer feature so that individuals of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment. So as the slide shows, you can express that you would like to make a comment by typing in the question and answer box, which should appear in the lower right of your screen. I would like to make a comment. And once you have indicated that, I will call on individuals in the order they are received, unmute their microphone, and provide 2 minutes, a few more moments as no one yet has indicated that they would like to make a comment. Okay, Board President, we do not have anyone indicating they would like to make a comment, so I will turn off the feature and hand it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote. The motion is to accept the minutes as accepted. Burton?
Aye. Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld abstain.
Felsenfeld, abstain. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You,
yes.
aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 3, the Board President's report. And since we last met in February, our world has changed drastically. Many challenges have emerged emerged as strategies are developed to mitigate the potential spread of COVID-19. I would first of all like to thank Governor Newsom, the California Department of Public Health, and the Department of Consumer Affairs Director Kimberly Kirchmeyer for the leadership they provide in facilitating the continued provision of care to individuals affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. I would also like to thank the board's executive officer and all the board staff for their diligence in maintaining board operations while maintaining flexibility in their changing work environment. I recognize the hardship that those currently in and those entering the dental profession are experiencing. Office closures, postponement of examinations, and delays in licensure. As we move forward in the fight against this pandemic, it is vital that the board maintains its priority of public protection. As we discuss agenda items today, I would like to remind all participants that the protection of the public is the highest priority for the Dental Board of California when exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. I would like to conclude my remarks by with you allowing me to share my highest respect for one other part of the dental family, and that would be the 6 deans of our schools in California. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them for their visionary leadership and their wisdom as we move forward through these difficult days. Thank you, and that concludes my report. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? DC moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Board President. I'm activating the question and answer feature now. So as a reminder to the members of the public in attendance, if you would like to make a public comment to the board, you can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the comment box, and then you will be called upon to make your comment. So unless you type the phrase similar to "I would like to make a comment," I won't call on you, as I'm not certain if you'd like to have your microphone unmuted. So members of the public, if you'd like to make a comment, I'll do a final call. Just insert the phrase "I would like to make a comment" or something similar in the question and answer box, and the moderator will unmute your microphone and provide your 2 minutes for public comment. I'll pause just a moment, Board President, if we don't have anybody indicating they'd like to make a comment at this time.
Okay, then
okay. I will deactivate that feature, Board President, and throw it back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 4, the Executive Officer's Report. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to update you on a few administrative items. At this point, I'd like to remind any board members who do not have their mic muted to mute it in the event that we start to get background noise. Thank you. As Dr. Stewart mentioned, since the February board meeting, board staff has experienced a shift in daily operations. On March 9th, the Department of Consumer Affairs began to issue guidelines regarding safety protocols bureaus that operate within the department. The board management staff began exploring telework options for DBC employees and preparing telework contracts and schedules to provide employee safety without undermining operational needs. On March 13th, the board established a COVID-19 page on its website. At the top of the board's homepage, there's a banner titled "Update on Impacts Relating to COVID-19." Guidance received from the Department of Public Health, the CDC, and the World Health Organization is posted on this site with links to this organization. Most recently, we posted the CDPH guidelines to assist dental offices in reopening. There is also a link to the DCA Director's waiver request page on our website. Beginning on March 17th, copies of the DCA Telework Program Guide were circulated to all staff members and processed by management. Training webinars were made available to staff on March 17th and 18th, and the training covered was how to register for a multi-factor authentication security process, to have a secure login for our staff to be able to continue to conduct business from home with a secure platform. Board staff can use this platform essentially to conduct their daily business, to check our mainframe office computer, to deal with Breeze, and it affords them the ability to perform essential work functions from home. Once training was completed, the majority of our staff began teleworking on March 19th, and the remaining staff followed suit over the next couple of days. On March 20th, the board posted information on its website that the building was closed to the public until further notice. As of today, the building remains closed to the public. All staff that are teleworking are required to be available during their normal work hours and are expected to respond to calls and emails as they would if working in the office. Staff members with essential functions, such as opening the mail and cashiering, report to the office on specific days of the week for set hours on their assigned day in the office. Each staff member checks in daily with their manager at the opening and close of the business day, providing a daily status update of their work. When staff complete the work that they've done at home, they contact their supervisor to arrange a time to pick up new work and drop off what they have completed. While in the office, staff print and mail any letters that need to be sent out and perform any work functions that cannot be achieved by teleworking. To date, the telework plan has been a general success and has improved attendance, work performance, and accountability. There is a learning curve of up to 1 week for some staff to familiarize themselves with a new way to access folders, files, and programs, and there have been some OIS issues connecting to the department portal and server issues when working on Word or Excel documents from home. But staff has been very creative and learned new ways to ensure that the work is still being completed timely. This week, executive management, and in that I refer to all the executive officers, we were notified that in order to move forward from stage 1 to stage 2 on the governor's resilience roadmap, we need to take action to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and ensure the health and safety of our employees and the public. We are in preparation for reopening the board office, and management will be developing a plan to protect employees and the public. We'll be including things like a detailed risk assessment and site-specific protection plan, training of employees about how to limit the spread of COVID by continued washing of hands, wearing a mask. If they have symptoms of COVID, we're encouraging them to stay home. So our management team is in the process of putting that together. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, so the next item I just wanted to briefly touch on essentially is the governor's budget. The May revise will be released today, and board management is hopeful that we'll be able to continue to fill the vacancies before an employee furlough or layoffs are announced. There are currently 21 vacancies within the board's 83 authorized positions. Some of the positions, some of the vacancies include the new positions that were authorized and not yet filled. But we are still working vigorously to recruit and interview and try to fill those positions as we are considered an essential function. During this period, we have been able to bring on 7 new staff. It has been challenging to welcome these people at a time when most of our staff are telecommuting from home. but we have been able to bring on a number of people. At this point, I'm not going to list them by name, but if they're listening, welcome to the board, and we're hoping things get back to a more normal operation so that you'll be able to meet some of your colleagues in person. We are also hopeful that by the August board meeting, we can bring the vacancy rate down to a more historical level and that many of our positions can be filled. Also affected by the COVID virus has been the board's build out of its suite. This has been delayed because of the county permitting issues. The county office that issues the permits has either been closed or working on in a very limited schedule. So the construction people who would be doing the build out of our suite have not been able to move forward. So the construction, the painting, and the carpet replacement is currently on hold. Depending on what happens with the state budget, we're holding off expanding this suite to accommodate additional staff. I really only have one other item to mention, and that is that we have been notified that the Department of Justice will be increasing the cures fee. Right now, licensees who have a DEA permit to write script for controlled substances pay $6 a year, or $12 is added on to their renewal notice. Effective January 1st, 2021, the new fee will be collected, which goes from $6 annually to $14 annually. And we'll report more on that information as it becomes available. At this time, Dr. Stewart, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none. Are there any public comments? DC moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Board President. I will be turning on the question and answer feature so that we can have members of the public indicate whether or not they would like to make a comment. As a brief reminder, members of the public, you can indicate you would like to make a comment by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. The moderator will then call on you, unmute your microphone, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. As of right now, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment. I'm going to just wait a few more moments, Board President, before closing it out. Okay, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment. I'll be now closing out that feature, Board President, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to agenda item 5, discussion and possible action regarding dental assisting council member. I believe our executive officer will present this agenda item.
And a huge apology. I did not mute my mic as I was supposed to after my comments, and I just noticed that. So hopefully I didn't have a lot of background information going out here. So this particular item, as you have read it, new development has occurred. Ann Contreras did contact me and send her a formal letter of resignation, which I believe I forwarded on to board members. So at this point, there is no action to remove Ms. Contreras since she did resign from her position. She expressed her appreciation for having served as one of the initial council members. She said she enjoyed the opportunity to serve. However, the situation she's under now does not allow her the flexibility to continue to serve in that capacity. So at this point, I'll just announce to the board that staff will open up recruitment to fill that position behind her, and will start that recruitment as soon as tomorrow.
Thank you, Karen. Ann Contreras will be missed. She was very, very nice to work with, and we will miss her, and wish her well. Okay, we will now move on to agenda item 6A, Discussion and possible action regarding comments received during the 45-day public comment period for the board's proposed rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 1019 and 1020, relating to substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. I will ask Gabriel Nevin, the board's legislative and regulatory analyst, and Danny Rogers, the board's regulatory legal counsel, to present this agenda item. Gabriel?
Good morning, board members. This is Gabriel Nevin. So, at its February and August 2019 meetings, the board approved regulatory language to implement AB 2138. Just to briefly remind you of the context of that, AB 2138 only permits boards to deny a license on the ground that an applicant has been convicted of a crime or subject to formal discipline if the conviction was within 7 years of the application and is substantially related, to the qualification, or if the applicant has been subject to formal discipline by a licensing board in the past 7 years for professional misconduct that would have been cause for disciplinary action for the board and is substantially related to the profession. It also prohibits the board from requiring an applicant for licensure to disclose information on their criminal history, although it allows the board to request mitigating information for the purposes of determining the substantial relationship. It also requires the board to develop criteria to determine whether a crime is substantially related to the qualifications, functions, or duties of the professions, and it must consider the nature and gravity of the offense, the number of years elapsed since the date of the offense, the nature and duties of the profession in which the applicant seeks licensure or is licensed. Law also prohibits a board from denying a license based on a conviction without considering evidence of rehabilitation, and it requires the board to develop criteria to evaluate rehabilitation when considering denying, suspending, or revoking a license. The board noticed the regulation proposal on March 13, 2020, and gave the public 45 days to provide public comment, ending on April 28, 2020. No public hearing was requested or conducted, but a public comment was received on April 28, 2020, and I will be presenting that after Danny Rogers presents DCA Legal Counsel's recommendations to modify the proposed text, and I will pass that to Danny now.
Good morning, everyone. This is Danny Rogers, Regulations Counsel to the Dental Board. There are several recommendations to modify the text of sections 1019 and 1020. These recommendations are detailed in Mr. Nevin's memorandum at page 17 of your materials. In general, these recommendations are directed to enhancing clarity and the proposed regulations before the rulemaking package is filed with the Office of Administrative Law. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have with respect to the proposed modification. If you have a preference for me going through each one, I'm happy to do that as well. So I will open it up to questions if anyone has any. Is there anyone who would like me to go seriatim through each modification proposal?
I would like, this is Dr. Stewart. I would like Sarah to respond to that. Sarah, do you think that is would be good or no?
Good morning. This is Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. At this point, Danny has outlined the changes in the meeting materials, and the modified text is presented in the meeting materials as well. If the board feels comfortable at this point, we can move on. At this point, we are asking for a motion to accept the DCA Legal Counsel's recommendations to modify the text.
This is Larine. I make a motion to accept.
And who was that? I'm sorry.
Lilia Larine.
Thank you, Lilia. Okay, we have a motion.
Burton, second.
We have a second. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? DC moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. I will at this time turn on the question and answer feature so that members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment. You can indicate that you would like to make a comment by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. The moderator then will call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments to the board. I'll pause a few more moments as we do not have anyone who has indicated that they would like to make a comment. Okay, Board President, we have not had any members of the public indicate that they would like to make a comment, so I'll be turning the feature off now and passing it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. This is agenda item number 6A. The motion details is to accept DCA's recommendation to the text of agenda item 6A. I will call for the vote. Burton?
I'm sorry, Ms. Pacheco, this is Sarah. I just wanted to clarify one thing. This agenda item will have several motions that staff are requesting. This is the first component of this agenda item to modify the text in response to DCA Legal Counsel's recommendations. Gabriel Nevin will also be presenting comments that we received during the 45-day comment period, and we'll be recommending actions on each of those comments as well. So just to clarify, the action being requested 6A is just relating to the DCA Legal Counsel's modified text suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai? Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Yes, Laren.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. So Gabriel, please present the comments received during the 45-day public comment period and the staff recommended responses.
Okay, I'm going to be going through these one by one. These are the public comments that we received via letter, which is included in the meeting materials. Comment 1 states that the proposed regulations leave gaps in the regulatory scheme pursuant to the changes in DPC sections 480, 481, 482, 493, as modified by 2138. The comment states that the proposed regulations fail to meet and implement these statutes. Additionally, the comment states that the proposed regulations fall short of the intent of the bill, which includes combating discrimination against people with records who have demonstrated rehabilitation and seek to establish themselves professionally. Legal counsel recommends that the board reject comment 1. Comment 1 should be rejected with no changes to the regulatory language. The purpose of the proposed regulations is to clarify substantial relationship criteria and criteria for rehabilitation consistent with the requirements of 2138. These regulations would adopt all the following criteria, which would assist the board in implementing a balanced approach to evaluating an applicant's eligibility for licensure. The nature and gravity of the offense, the number of years elapsed since the date of the offense, and the nature and duties of a dentist or dental auxiliary. clarifying how to determine whether a crime is substantially related, and clarifying the factors that will be considered when evaluating rehabilitation should assist applicants and licensees with demonstrating their rehabilitation. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response to the comments. If staff recommendations are rejected or modified, staff requests that the board provide a rationale for inclusion in the rulemaking's final statement of reasons.
Tomorrow, I move to accept staff's recommendation.
Lie, second.
Chan, second.
So thank you. The motion is to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 1. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? DC moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Board President. I'll now activate the question and answer feature so that members of the public can indicate if they would like to make a comment. So as a reminder, members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you can insert the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," into the question box, which should appear in the lower right of your screen, as indicated on the slide that's up right now. Once you've done so, you will be called upon, your microphone will be unmuted, and you will be provided 2 minutes to make your comments. At this time, there's been no one who's indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I'll pause just a few more moments before handing it back to you, Board President. Okay, no one has indicated that they'd like to make a comment, so I'm turning off the feature now, and I'll hand it back to you, Board President.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is agenda item number 6B, to accept staff recommendation on comment number 1. Burton?
I'm
Burton,
sorry,
aye.
Ms. Pacheco, I just want to clarify, this is Sarah Wallace. We are still on 6A.
Oh, 6A.
For members of the public, we are taking action on responding to comment number 1.
Comment number 1. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
You, aye. You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed. Thank you.
Gabriel Nevin, would you please present the summary of comment number 2 and staff recommendation as provided in the meeting materials?
I will. This is Gabriel Nevin. Comment number 2 states that the regulations do not comply with AB 2138 because proposed section 1019C states that certain violations are substantially related regardless of the passage of time or the nature and gravity of the offense, which contravenes BPC 481. AB 2138 allows the board discretion to determine which crimes are substantially related on an individual basis, this comment states, and therefore 1019C fails to note that criminal history that resulted in the applicant obtaining a certificate of rehabilitation, pardon, or dismissal, or an arrest that resulted in a disposition other than conviction shall not be denied a license. Council recommends that the board reject comment 2 without making any changes in the language. Subdivision C of section 1020 provides that substantially related crimes, professional misconduct, or acts include violations of code sections, BPC code section 651.4, 654, and 655, or a violation of the Dental Practice Act. Violations of the articles and violations of the Act are committed by licensees in performing the functions and duties of the dental profession, i.e., you commit professional misconduct during the course of your practice. Accordingly, they evidence the present or potential unfitness of a person holding such a license to perform the functions authorized by the license. Furthermore, a violation of the DPA does not become no longer substantially related due to the passage of time. Passage of time for such violations would be reviewed under rehabilitation criteria in section 1020. And I will respond to the comment in the second paragraph in comment 5. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response to the comments. If staff recommendations are rejected or modified, staff again requests that the board provide a rationale.
So thank you. The motion is, again, to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 22. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none.
Dr. Stewart, I'm sorry, this is Karen jumping in.
Yep.
I didn't hear who the motioner was and who the second was.
Burton.
Ms. Burton, you motioned?
Yes.
And you second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, the motion was to accept?
Yes, the staff recommendations relating to comment number 2.
Was to legal counsel recommends the board reject comment number 2. That's the motion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's right.
So I think we've had adequate time for board member comments. And again, hearing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, can you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Board President. So members of the public, I am turning on the question and answer feature again. So you may indicate that you would like to make a public comment by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question and answer box. The moderator will then call on you, unmute your microphone, and provide 2 minutes for you to make your public comment. At this time, we do not have anyone who's indicated they'd like to make a public comment, so I will wait just a few more moments to give folks time before passing it back to the Board President. All right, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment, so I will be turning off the feature and passing it back to you, Board President.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. This is to accept staff recommendation relating to comment number 2. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina? Medina?
I was trying to use my phone. Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Thank you. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow? Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes. You yes.
You, aye. Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to present the summary of comment number 3 and staff recommendation as provided in the meeting materials. Gabriel, back to you.
And this is Gabriel Nevin again. We're starting on comment number 3. This is on page 24 of the meeting material, the bottom. The substance of the comment is that section 1020 relies too heavily on law enforcement reports and determination of the applicant's progress, rehabilitation can and does take many forms that the current language does not fully embrace. Comment refers readers to comment 8 below, for example, of rehabilitation to expand the regulations. Legal counsel has recommended that the board reject comment 3. It should be rejected and no changes should be made. 1020 permits the applicant to offer evidence of rehabilitation that can encompass any of the forms of rehabilitation which are proposed. Accordingly, the legal counsel believes that the proposed language is consistent with the legislative intent. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response. And we ask again that if the comments are rejected or modified, that a rationale be provided.
Morrow moves to accept the board's staff's recommendation to reject comment 3.
You second.
Second.
Thank you. So the motion is to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 3. Are there any board member comments?
Felsenfeld. Dr. Stewart, can you hear me? Alan Felsenfeld. Okay,
yes.
Just a question for my own clarity as I'm relatively new. Do our enforcement people get a sense of what's going on if someone is being followed, as it were, for a criminal offense by an outside police force?
Danny, can you?
Karen, would that be something you'd like to address, or I?
We can have that conversation offline. It's really not relative to this agenda item.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
This is the moderator. I'm turning on the question and answer feature now for members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a comment. You can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question and answer box, and then the moderator will unmute your microphone and provide you 2 minutes to make your comment. As of right now, we have not received anyone indicating that they would like to make a comment, so I'll pause just a few more moments before passing it back to the board president. Okay, board president, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment, so I'll be closing out the feature and passing it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept the recommendation to reject comment 3. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes, you yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to comment number 4. Gabe?
This is Gabriel Nevin again. We're on comment number 4 on page 25 of the meeting materials. This comment requests that the proposed language include a 7-year washout period for consideration of convictions or discipline which are not statutorily considered serious felonies. And this is in relation to BPC 480 subsection A1. Legal counsel's recommended that this comment be rejected and that no changes be made. this would effectively be incorporating the statutory language into the regulations, and that is duplicative and is kind of rule writing procedures. So it's not necessary to repeat, and board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response to the comments. And if the recommendations are rejected or modified, staff requests that the board provide a rationale.
We'll accept the motion in a second.
Burton move.
Chan second.
Burton. Chan seconds. So the thank you and the motion is to accept the staff recommendation relating to comment number 4. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
Hello, Board President. This is the moderator. I will be activating the question and answer panel now so that members of the public can indicate if they would like to make a comment. They can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question and answer box. The moderator will then call on you and unmute your microphone, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. As of right now, we have not received any indications that members of the public would like to make a comment on this item. I'll pause just a few more moments before passing it back to the Board President. Okay, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment on this item, so I'll be closing that feature out and pass it back to you, Board President.
Thank you. And Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept the staff recommendation to comment number 4. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
I.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. Gabriel, we're ready to move on to comment number 5.
All right, this is Gabe Nevin again. We're on comment number 5, and this is on page 26 of the meeting material. This comment states that the regulations should provide that a person with a criminal history shall not be denied a license if the applicant has obtained a certificate of rehabilitation or dismissal or an arrest which led to an infraction, citation, or disposition other than a conviction or juvenile adjudication. Legal counsel recommends that the board reject this comment and make no changes to the regulatory language. Again, the regulations should not indiscriminately incorporate statutory language. BPC section 480 subsection C already states that a license may not be denied based on a conviction or on the basis of the underlying acts if it has been dismissed or expunged. In addition, BPC 480 subsection B prohibits license denial if the applicant has obtained a certificate of rehabilitation or was granted clemency or a pardon or made a showing of rehabilitation. Furthermore, BPC 480B prohibits license denial based on an arrest that resulted in something other than a conviction. And since these provisions are already specifically addressed in statute, adding them again in regulation is duplicative. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response. And again, staff requests that if the recommendation is rejected or modified, the board provide a rationale.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 5?
Marin motion to accept.
You second.
Thank you. And again, the motion is to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 5. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
Hello, this is the moderator. We will go ahead and turn on the question and answer feature now to accept comments. I see that we do have an individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment, individual by the name of Bruce Horn. So we will go ahead and unmute your microphone, Bruce. Bruce, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. I will verbally cue you, and then we will start your 2 minutes to address the board. Muting your microphone now.
Hi, this is Dr. Horn. That was I will hold and listen and use my time later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will pause just a moment to allow other individuals a chance to make a comment. All right, I am closing out the question and answer feature as I do not see that anyone else would like to make a comment. Board President, I pass it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept the staff recommendation relating to comment number 5. Burton? Burton? Burton absent. Chan?
Joanne?
Yes.
Chan present.
I'd suggest that if a board member has stepped away, perhaps we can circle back before we close the vote.
Good idea. Thank you. Chan?
Chan, yes.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, I.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
You yes.
You, aye. Burton?
I'm sorry, this is Karen Fisher. So apparently Ms. Burton has lost the connection and can't hear anything. Moderator, do you have a suggestion on how to proceed?
Yes, I think that another staff person confirmed she can still hear, but can't see the screen. So it's possible that Board Member Burton, you have just minimized the screen. On your computing device, there may be a set of icons towards the bottom of your screen, one of which probably looks like a marble with some coloring around the circumference of it. That's the WebEx icon. If you select that again, I think it will bring the screen back up. I'll pause a few moments so that you can give that a try. And once that comes back up, you should see the screen again, and you should be able to unmute your microphone.
You are a genius. Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Thank you. Motion passed.
Thank you. Gabe will now present the summary of comment number 6.
Thank you. This is Gabriel Nevin. We're on comment 6 on page 26. This comment states that the regulations fail to state that the board shall not require an applicant to disclose any information or documentation regarding the applicant's criminal history. Legal counsel recommends that the board reject this comment and make no change to the regulatory language. Again, this is provided for in statute, and so putting it into the regulations will be duplicative. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended responses, and staff asks that if the comments, that if the recommendations are rejected or modified, that the board provide a rationale.
Morrow,
We have a
move to accept staff's recommendation to reject comment 6.
Chan, second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. The motion is to accept the staff recommendation relating to comment number 6. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Board President. I will be turning on the question and answer feature now to facilitate public comment. That feature has been turned on, and if you would like to make a comment, type the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question and answer box, and we will then call on you. You will then have 2 minutes to make your comment, and then you will receive a 15-second warning once you've nearly had your time expire so that you can wrap up your comments. I will pause just a few more moments as we have not had anyone indicate that they would like to make a comment yet. All right, I am closing out the feature now, Board President, as no one has indicated they would like to make a comment, and I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept the staff recommendation relating to comment number 6. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. McKenzie?
Kinsey, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, yes.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to comment number 7. Gabriel?
Thank you. This is Gabriel Nevin again. We're on comment 7 here on page 27. This comment states that the proposed language fails to include that the board must notify the applicant in writing if the applicant is denied a license or is disqualified from licensure. The comment states that the board must provide procedures describing the process for an applicant to challenge a decision or request consideration. The procedure stating that the applicant has a right to appeal the board's decision and provide a process for requesting a complete conviction history. Legal counsel recommended that the board reject comment 7 and make no changes to the language. Again, these requirements are included in statute, in the Business and Professions Code and in the Government Code, and therefore including them here will be duplicative. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response, and staff asks that if the board rejects or modifies the recommended response, that the board provide a rationale.
Do we have a motion in a second?
Move Burton.
You second.
Thank you. The motion is to accept the staff recommendation relating to comment number 7. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. I'll now turn on the question and answer feature to facilitate public comment. As a reminder to the members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. The moderator will then call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comment. At this time, we do not have anybody indicating that they would like to make a comment on this item. I'll pause just a few more moments before closing out the question and answer panel. All right, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I'm closing out that feature, and I pass it back to you, Board President.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept staff recommendation relating to comment number 7. Burton.
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan.
And I.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai.
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren.
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow.
Morrow, I.
Morrow, aye. Olagi.
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You.
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to summary of comment number 8. Gabriel?
Thank you. This is Gabriel Nevin again. We're on comment 8 on page 27. This comment states that the intent of AB 2138 was not to merely incorporate probation or parole reports into the occupational licensing determination. The letter states that rehabilitation can and does take many forms beyond law enforcement supervision, and therefore recommends adding volunteer service, successful employment in a related field, a history of work experience in an employment social enterprise, unpaid work in the community, further education, abstinence from controlled substances or alcohol, stability of family life, new and different social and business relationships from those which existed at the time, change in attitude of the applicant as evidenced by personal testimony, evidence of rehabilitation, evidence of family and friends, and other markers of rehabilitation. Legal counsel recommends that the board reject this comment and make no changes to the regulatory language. BPC criteria to evaluate rehabilitation. And the final text of 1020 articulates a 2-step process. First, the board must determine if the completion of the criminal sentence with no violations, constitutes rehabilitation. Consistent with AB 2138, they will consider rehabilitation if an applicant completes the criminal sentence at issue without a violation of probation or parole. Specific criteria are being added to section 1020B to help the board to determine whether the sentence completion demonstrates rehabilitation. Criteria include the nature and gravity of the crimes, the length of the applicable parole or probation period, the extent to which the applicable parole or probation period was shortened or lengthened, and the reasons the period was modified, the terms and conditions of the parole or probation, and the extent to which they bear on the applicant's rehabilitation, and the extent to which the terms or conditions of parole or probation were modified, the reasons for the modification. Now, if the board finds rehabilitation, no further information needs to be provided. And if rehabilitation is not demonstrated based on the sentence completion, this requires the board to consider certain other criteria to evaluate rehabilitation. A general category permitting submission of any rehabilitation evidence allows an applicant to offer evidence related to the proposed categories suggested above. As the board can and already does give serious consideration to these factors when considering whether an applicant is rehabilitated. board believes that the proposed language is consistent with the legislative intent. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response to the comments. If the staff recommendations are rejected or modified, staff requests that the board provide a rationale.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do we have a motion and a second?
Can move. Can either Gabe or the moderator advance the screen for the agenda item on the screen?
I'm afraid I'm not in control of that.
This is the moderator. I see what is displayed now as agenda item 6A. Is that the incorrect agenda item?
This is Chan again. We're breaking it down. Should we somehow itemize which one we're on? Because we're separating the questions.
I believe the PowerPoint that we were provided provides it as just 6A, and that I think it's broken down further in your meeting materials. But I'll let board staff correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct. So we're following along on the board meeting materials. Section 6A has essentially 9 comments. We're currently on comment number 8. So for those board members, I'm assuming you're following along on your meeting materials. Does that answer your question, Dr. Chan?
Yes, it does. I'm following also.
Okay, so I must have missed. Did somebody else have a question about where we were?
No, it's just
on agenda. Yeah.
Again, this is Dr. Chan. It just says agenda item number 6, and it looks like we're separating out the questions. So I thought that the screen would advance for each comment, but I was incorrect.
We did not set up the PowerPoint to be able to do that. Perhaps in retrospect we should have, but we did not set up the PowerPoint to do that. So I believe we're getting ready to take the vote on comment number 8 under agenda item 6.
This is
Chan again, and I moved it.
Ms. Burton, did you have a comment?
We had 2 people speaking at once. I'm not sure who it was.
This is Burton.
This is the moderator. I heard it. Sorry, go ahead, Member Burton.
My question was if there was a second. It was moved by Chan.
Any second?
So we have a motion and a second. And the motion is to accept staff recommendations relating to comment number 8. Now, are there any board comments? Any board member comments? Hearing none, let's move to public comments.
Hello, this is the moderator. At this time, I'll be activating the question and answer feature so that members of the public can indicate if they would like to make a comment. The question and answer feature has now been activated. If you would like to make a comment, go ahead and type the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question field, and you will then be called upon. Your microphone will be unmuted, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. No members of the public, as of right now, have indicated they would like to make a comment. However, I'll pause just a few more moments before passing it back to the board president. All right, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I will be turning off that feature and I pass it back.
Mary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept staff recommendations relating to comment number 8. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, I. Morrow,
Morrow, I.
Morrow, I. Olagi,
Olagi, I.
Olagi, I. Pacheco, I. Stewart,
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, I. You,
Yes.
I. Motion passed.
Thank you. Gabriel, I think we're getting to comment number 9.
All right, this is Gabriel Nevin. We're back on comment number 9 on page 29. This comment states that the proposed regulations fail to state the requirements set forth in BPC 480 subsection G2, including that a board retain the number of applicants with a criminal record who received notice of denial or disqualification of licensure, the number of applicants with a criminal record who provided evidence of mitigation or rehabilitation, and the final disposition and demographic information. Legal counsel has recommended that the board reject comment 9 and make no changes to the regulatory language. Again, these requirements are set forth in statute and the subsection quoted, and stating them again in regulation would be duplicative of the statute. The board may take action to accept, reject, or modify staff's recommended response, and if staff recommendations are rejected or modified, staff requests that the board provide a rationale.
I will now accept a motion in a second.
Motion.
I'm sorry, who was that?
You.
And do we have a second?
Burton, second.
Second.
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen. Did you accept Dr. Lai as the second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. So the motion is to accept the staff recommendations relating to comment number 9. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
This is the moderator. I'll now be activating the question and answer panel, which is the method through which we facilitate public comment. And I see that we have a comment on this agenda item. So let me go ahead and call on that individual. It's a individual who's identified themselves as Bruce Witcher. So Bruce, I will call on you now. Bruce, your microphone is unmuted.
Okay, I just wanted to let the board know that it's not hard to follow this using the agenda meeting materials. So I think it's going along pretty well, just from the public perspective, so you know that we can follow it even though it's not part of the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Always good to hear your voice. Thank you.
Thank you. The moderator appreciates that check-in as well from the public. I will go ahead and pause a few more moments to see if anybody has any public comments. I'm not seeing any indications of an individual who would like to make a comment, so I will turn off the question and answer feature now. And Board President, throwing it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote to accept staff recommendations relating to comment number 9. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, I.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart,
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You,
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen. At this time, I'd like to offer a 10-minute break for those people that need to take a bio break, and I would suggest we try to be back in by 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Thank you so much. 10 minutes. We'll see you back in 10 minutes. That's a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and while we are on break, I'll just make sure that all of the panelists' microphones are muted, which it looks like they are, and we'll display a slide that indicates we are on a break. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you all shortly.
We will now move on to agenda item 6B, discussion and possible action regarding adoption of proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 1019 and 1020 relating to substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. Gabriel, I believe you're on again.
Excuse me. Thank you. This is Gabriel Nevin. Based on the board action taken in agenda item 6A, board staff request the board take the following action to move this rulemaking forward. Modify the text in response to the staff recommendations discussed and direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including preparing the modified text for a 15-day public comment period, which includes the amendments accepted by the board at this meeting. If after the 15-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations before completing the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed amendments to the California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 1019 and 1020 relating to substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria as noticed in the modified text.
Thank you. Do we have a motion and a second?
Can move. Can move.
Mackenzie, second.
Burton, second.
We have a motion and a second. Gabriel, can you please repeat the motion language?
Certainly. The motion is to modify the text in response to the staff recommendations discussed and direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including preparing the modified text for a 15-day public comment period, which includes the amendments accepted by the board at this meeting. If after the 15-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations before completing the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 1019 and 1020 relating to substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria as noticed in the modified text.
Thank you, Gabe. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Board President. We will now activate the question and answer feature for members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a comment on this item. So I've activated the question and answer feature now. If you'd like to make a comment, you can indicate so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, which should appear in the bottom right of your screen. Once you have done that, we will call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. At this time, we don't have anyone indicating they would like to make a comment. I'm going to pause for just a few more moments, and then I will pass it back to the board president.
This is Karen Fisher. During the pause, can we just confirm, was it Dr. Chan that made the motion and Ms. McKenzie who seconded?
Yes.
Yes, this is Mackenzie.
And yes,
this is the moderator. And this is the moderator. I'll be going ahead to close out the question and answer feature now and passing it back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, I.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 7, discussion and a possible action on legislation. And I will ask Board Member Fran Burton to facilitate this agenda item.
Thank you. I wanted to mention to you first, before we get started with legislation, that the legislative session that we are in now is an abbreviated session, and that not all the bills that were introduced this year will be moving forward due to budget limitations and the necessity to be more focused because of COVID-19. So the chairs of each committee have chosen which bills will be heard. Generally, the policy committees will hold one hearing this month, and bills will be heard and reported to fiscal committees. As far as we know, after hearing in policy committee, non-fiscal bills will be heard in their respective floor sessions beginning May 26th. So with that, I'd like to begin the discussion on each respective bill.
All right, this is Gabe Nevin.
Okay.
Or you want me to take it?
Yes, please.
I will. All right, so I will start the discussion with Assembly Bill 2028. This is brought by Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry. This bill is going to change the existing requirement that the board post the notice and agenda for the board meeting 10 days in advance of the meeting on the internet. This bill will modify that requirement to include the meeting materials in addition to the agenda. So this would be, rather than just the agenda that is currently posted 10 days in advance, it would be the entire meeting materials that you see before you would be required to be posted online 10 days in advance, and it would prohibit the board from discussing materials if they haven't complied with this requirement. This bill presents some problems for the board because, particularly as it relates to legislation, the legislative process moves pretty quickly during the spring and summer months. And I've got, of the 8 bills that I'm presenting today, 2 of them have been modified in the period since we put the agenda online. So in that case, I wouldn't be able to discuss the amendments, and it would really handicap the board's ability to consider the most accurate, most updated legislative materials and to express their will on them. So staff are recommending an opposed position on this. because the subject matter is already controlled by the agenda, we're not adding a significant amount of transparency, and this will limit the ability of board members and stakeholders and the public to participate in the meeting with the most updated and relevant information. And with that, the board may accept or reject or modify staff's recommendation.
Are there any board member comments?
This is Mackenzie. I have a question. Or maybe just a clarifying question. So it seems like this would prevent situations where sometimes we have the materials in advance, but even on the day of, we get an update. So there couldn't be any updated information as well, even if it was.
Not on a plain reading of this legislation. This says that if it hasn't been posted online, made available to the public 10 days in advance, it can't be discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is Member Lai. I want to ask a question, please.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So, Fran, do you think we will need a teleconference or meeting after the legislature reconvenes, or will it be on the next quarterly meeting?
It's hard to tell right now. There are, as you see the agenda, there are a number of bills here. It's hard to tell. I don't know.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just
want to, I know everybody, we don't know how this is going to proceed, but it was just a comment that possibly if we could or we needed to have an emergency meeting or a telemeeting to vote on certain items if necessary. That was just a question if that could be done.
I think that we always have that option, and it's just a matter of getting it noticed in this environment that we're in now. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what's going to be amended further. It's hard to know whether there will be other things that may be gutted and amended beyond these things that we're looking at right now. We just kind of have to play it by ear.
Okay, so that being said, maybe we should not vote on anything today.
No, I would disagree with that. There are, this one especially, I think that we need to oppose. We also need to make some motions so that if there are further recommendations, for instance, with this one, are outlining our concerns. We can't do that if we don't vote on things.
Okay, very well. I agree.
And this is Mackenzie. Sorry, I was just going to move to oppose.
Okay, it's been moved by Mackenzie. Is there a second?
You second.
So the bill has been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment?
This is the moderator. We'll go ahead and activate the question and answer feature now for members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a comment. That feature has been activated. So members of the public, you can make a comment by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, which should be in the lower right of your screen. You will then be called upon, your microphone will be unmuted, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I will pause a few more moments as we have not had anyone indicate that they would like to make a public comment. Once I close it, I will verbally cue the board member and pass it back to them. So just a few more moments, we'll leave it open. Okay, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I will pass it back to you, Ms. Burton.
Before we move forward on this one, I neglected to say at the beginning that this bill was heard on the 2nd, and in the Governmental Organization Committee, and it did pass to appropriations on a 17-0 vote. So back to Dr. Lai's concern, in this particular case, because we do want to oppose it and we would like to make some suggestions to the author, it's important that we take a position. With that, if there are no other comments, I'd like to ask the Secretary to read the roll, to call the roll, please.
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I would now like to call for the vote. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Aye.
Medina,
Medina.
aye. Thank you. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
And Madam Secretary, just for your information, the motion was to oppose this and to send a letter indicating our concerns.
I have that recorded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're up, Gabriel.
All right, are we ready to move on to the next piece of legislation? This is, this is Gabriel Nevin speaking. The next piece of legislation is AB 2185. This bill is on for hearing on May 21st at 10 a.m. in the Assembly B&P. It was last amended yesterday. This bill is a part of a package of bills which are attempting to reduce licensure barriers for military families. So this bill would require the board to issue a license to an applicant who holds a license in good standing in another state in the discipline, practice level, and scope of practice for which the person applies. And they must meet additional requirements, including that they are married to an active duty member of the United States military who is assigned to a duty station in California, and that the license that they are applying to have reciprocally issued is one that they have held for 3 of the last 5 years in another state. And the amendment that went in yesterday changes that from just another state to another state or jurisdiction. So presumably that would mean that it would be both other states and foreign jurisdiction licensees. So the board has a process for validating dentistry licensees, the licensure by credential pathway. However, there are going to be some specialty dentistry licenses that California doesn't have, and these licensees don't have, therefore they could potentially not be eligible for licensure in California. In addition, the licensure by credential pathway has a requirement for 5 of the last 7 years, as opposed to this bill's 3 of the last 5 years. So this would reduce the barriers in a way that limits the board's ability to ensure that all licensees are competent in California. There's a lot more difficulty where this bill applies to RDAs and RDAEF. Because this bill states that the out-of-state license has to have the same scope of practice, though, it is our contention that this bill is not going to be effective at providing reciprocal licensing for anyone anywhere else in the country. Just as a starting place, there are 2 states that offer no RDA and RDAEF licensure, and 26 states that offer no RDA licensure. And under this law, those folks wouldn't be eligible. And so it's the staff recommendation that the board take a watch position on this and send a letter to the author's office outlining our concerns. The bill alters a timeline that the legislature already determined is appropriate, and it also reduces the board's ability to assess beforehand the competence of potential licensees. And it sets us up to have a very complicated process of validating each out-of-state, out-of-jurisdiction licensee whenever it comes up, and that will be a relatively large burden on the board. So despite that, we are recommending a watch position.
Okay, I'd like to move, this is Burton, I'd like to move AB 2185.
This is Morrow, I second.
Are there any board member comments?
This is Morrow. I do have a question. Since this bill authorizes, I understand that in order to have a license from another state to California to meet these requirements, that their license in that other state or jurisdiction has to meet the same practice requirements as California. Since California did not have a specialty license, then if a spouse or a domestic partner or meets this qualification of a military individual and they hold a specialty license, that would not qualify them to get a California license because our license is general dentistry, not specialty. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
Thank you, board member. We will go ahead and open up the public comment window. So the question and answer feature has been opened. So members of the public, if you'd like to make a comment on this item, you can do so by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question and answer box. And the moderator will then call on you and provide you 2 minutes to make your comment. And at the conclusion of that, your microphone will again be muted. At this time, we don't have anyone indicating that they would like to make a public comment, so I will pause a few more moments before turning off the question and answer feature. And Ms. Burton, I'll cue you once I've closed out the window.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Burton, we've gone ahead and closed out the public comment feature as no one indicated they would like to make a comment on that item. I give it back to you.
Okay, thank you. So this is AB 2185. The motion is to watch this bill and send a letter with our concerns. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll for the vote. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren,
Laren? Aye. Mackenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I. Medina?
Medina, yes.
Medina, I. Morrow?
Morrow, I.
Morrow, I. Olagi?
Olagi, I.
Olagi, I. Pacheco, I. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, I. You?
You, yes.
You, I. Motion passed.
Thank you. AB 2549, Gabe.
Yes, this is Gabe Nevin again. AB 2549 is on for hearing in Assembly B and P on May 21 at 10 a.m. It was last amended on March 12. This bill, so there are boards and bureaus that issue temporary licenses to applicants who are spouse to an active member or an active military member assigned to a duty station in this state, and that the applicant holds an unrestricted license to practice the profession or vocation in another state within the United or territory within the United States. This bill would require the dental board to issue those temporary licenses as well. It would require the temporary license to be issued within 30 days of receiving a completed application, and would require the temporary license to be converted to a standard license within 12 months of issuance if the applicant demonstrates having met all the requirements for a standard license, or that the requirements for their out-of-state license were substantially equivalent to the requirements for the California license. So this, again, raises the same more severe problems with the RDA and RDA-EF licenses. Again, because there's not a national standard for RDAs, and each state's Practice Act varies dramatically, it will be very difficult and very time-consuming to assess every state and foreign jurisdiction's Practice Act, and there will still be many, many states and practitioners who will just not be able to take advantage of this because they come from a jurisdiction that does not offer a standard license. So in addition, there is the understanding that the author's intent with these temporary licenses is basically that the boards are to issue the temporary license and check whether or not the practitioner is competent on the back end. And so obviously staff are concerned with this. This really dramatically would reduce the ability of the board to enforce the Practice Act and to ensure that all practitioners are meeting the minimum competency standards. So staff are recommending an opposed position on this bill. And happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to move this bill with a letter giving our concerns. This is Burton.
You, second.
This is Morrow. I have a question. Fran, what do you mean by move it? Are you wanting to oppose it, watch it with the letter of concern? What is your motion specifically?
Well, in his report, Gabriel recommended an oppose. So I'm moving that position.
Thank you for that clarification.
That we oppose the bill and send a letter with our concerns. You follow me? Dr. Morrow?
Yes, Fran, I do understand now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, are there any other board member comments? Any public comment? And moderator, if you would please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Burton. We'll go ahead and activate the question and answer feature now. As a reminder to the public, the way that you can make a comment to the board would be to indicate that you'd like to do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. Once you have done that, you will be called upon, and your microphone will be unmuted, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments to the board. At this time, we don't have anybody indicating that they would like to make a comment on this agenda item. However, I'll wait a few more moments before closing out the question and answer feature, and I will verbally cue Ms. Burton once we have closed this feature out. All right. We did not receive any requests to make public comments, Ms. Burton, so I am passing it back to you now.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now to oppose with letter of concerns. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You?
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
All right.
AB 2631.
Excellent. This is Gabriel Nevin. AB 2631, not been amended, is not scheduled for hearing, although it has been referred to the B&P committee. This bill is going to prohibit charging an initial or original license fee to a military spouse applicant. Those are persons who are in a marriage or domestic partnership with an active duty member of the Armed Forces of the United States assigned to a duty station in California. This legislation will have a negative impact on the board's revenues from initial licensing fees for DDS licensees. RDAs are not charged a quote-unquote initial licensing fee. They are charged an application fee and then issued a license without an accompanying fee once their application is approved. The authors have been made aware of this, but they actually haven't gotten back on whether or not this would apply as written. Certainly it is their intent to have it apply to all origination fees. Based on the current draft of the bill, we're projecting a maximum or a high-end annual revenue loss of $23,000 from this legislation, and that is expected to be minor and absorbable. Staff are recommending a watch position on this
bill. This is Burton. We have made the author's office aware of our concerns, as Gabriel just indicated. This is a bill that may not move because it's not been scheduled according to what we know about the one hearing that each committee will have. So I think that we put our concerns out there, and so at this point, we can continue to just watch this. I do want to point out something if in the agenda members, that may be a little confusing. If you look at the bottom of page 52, there is a reference to 2631, and it's written in to the information on AB 2549. So it's just in other words, it's an error in the printing of the agenda. I do want to move a watch. Is there a second?
Mackenzie, second.
Are there any questions from board members? Any public comments?
Hello, this is the moderator. Yes, I'll now turn on the public comment feature. So members of the public who would like to make a comment can do so by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box of the question and answer feature that I've activated. You will then be called upon, your microphone will be unmuted, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. As of right now, I do not have anybody indicating that they would like to make a comment. However, I'll pause for a few more moments before turning it back to Ms. Burton. Okay, Ms. Burton, we did not receive any requests to make public comment on that item. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the board secretary to call the roll.
This is Joanne Pacheco, board secretary. I will now call the roll. The motion is moved to watch 2631. Burton? Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Alagi?
Olagi, aye.
Alagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye.
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
All right, are we ready to move to AB 2704? Okay, hearing no objection. AB 2704 will require all healing arts boards to collect specified demographic information and post it to their website and provide it to the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. And so for certain license types, the board already collects this information. So some of these existing surveys will have to be updated, but staff are projecting a relatively low impact that will be minor and absorbable, and this could certainly be useful in helping to identify and redress inequalities for underserved communities, and so we're recommending a watch position. I should also point out that I spoke with the author's office yesterday, and they have indicated that they're not going to be pursuing this. Maybe I should have led with that.
This is Lai, move to accept recommendation.
Laren, second.
Ms. Burton, are you still there?
Yeah, I was talking. Moved by Lai and second by Laren. Any board member comment? Any public comment?
Hello, this is the moderator. I'll go ahead and activate the public comment feature now. I'll activate the question and answer panel now. So members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the comment box. Once you have indicated that you'd like to make a comment, you will be called upon and unmuted, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. At this time, we do not have anyone indicating they would like to make a comment on this item. However, I'll pause just a few more moments to allow folks an opportunity to indicate if they would like to make a comment. Ms. Burton, I'll pass the, I'll verbally cue you once I've closed this question and answer feature out and close the comment period. Pause just a few more moments. Okay, we did not have any requests to make a comment, so I've closed that out. And Ms. Burton, I'll give it back to you now.
Thank you. AB 2704 has been moved as a watch, and it's noted that this bill has not been scheduled for hearing yet. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll. Move to watch. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. McKenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You?
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to go
AB
to
3045?
This is Gabriel Nevin. AB 3045 is another military spouse licensure bill. This will require the board to issue temporary licenses to military spouses and also honorably discharged veterans who have corresponding license in another state. As AB 2549, plus it has expanded the eligibility of who can qualify this to honorably discharged veterans, which is probably a substantially larger group. Board staff recommend an opposed position on this bill. This bill dramatically reduces the board's ability to assess the competence of a potential dental auxiliary licensee in advance of granting them a license. The board's going to have to analyze every out-of-state license. And again, by definition, there are dozens of states whose practitioners will be ineligible for this bill. In addition, because it requires the applicant to meet all the requirements for licensure in California, this bill would still require applicants to take the California Law and Ethics examination before receiving a California license. And so it is self-limiting in its goal of providing for reciprocal licensure.
Okay. I am going to recommend an opposed position, and am going to recommend that we send a letter with our concern.
Second, Lai.
Moved by Burton, second by Lai. Any board member comments? any public comment?
All right, this is the moderator. I'll go ahead and activate the question and answer feature now to facilitate public comment. As a reminder to the members of the public who are logged in, if you'd like to make a comment, you can insert the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box that should appear somewhere in the neighborhood of the lower right of your screen. Once you've indicated that you would like to make a comment, we will then call upon you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. We have not had anyone indicate that they'd like to make a comment yet, so I'll pause for a few more moments before passing it back to Ms. Burton. Okay, we received no request to make a public comment, so I've turned off that feature. And Ms. Burton, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. The bill has been moved and seconded. We're going to do an oppose on this with a letter with our concerns. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lie, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You?
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready for AB 3315?
Right.
AB 3315 is going to require the board to reassume responsibility for approving foreign dental schools. I'm sure the board members remember that our sunset bill, AB 1519 from last year, shifted the responsibility for approving foreign dental schools to CODA, the Commission on Dental Accreditation. This would undo that provision and return to the status quo ante. Staff recommend an opposed position on this provision for all the same reasons that we were in favor of enacting this provision to begin with. The board specializes in administering and enforcing the California Dental Practice Act. CODA specializes in facilitating interstate reciprocity between dental practitioners in different jurisdictions. Allowing CODA to approve foreign dental schools allows them to specialize in what they do best and allows the board to specialize in what we do best and maximize the protection of California consumers. So we're recommending an opposed position.
And I'm going to move that. Burton?
Second, Morrow.
Is there a second?
Morrow, second.
Thank you. Any board member comments?
Hello? Darina, I have a comment. I just was looking at the summary, and it doesn't have an explanation of why the Assembly wants to return to the status quo. Where can we see that, or how can we get an explanation?
Bill appears to have been pushed by the Moldova Foreign Dental School. We've received a letter from their attorney stating that, and so that is where this is coming from.
But the Assembly members, many are supporting this, so what about the Assembly? What do they feel about it? I mean, what are they saying? What are they saying?
The members of the Assembly, the bill has not been heard yet. The bill will be heard on May 21st.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
But I will certainly reach out to the authors and sponsors and get a better read on that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other board member comment? Any public comment?
Thank you, Ms. Burton. I'll go ahead and activate the public comment feature now. The public comment feature has been activated. So if there's a member of the public that would like to make a comment on this agenda item, you can do so by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box that is in the bottom right of your screen. Once you do so, the moderator will call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. As of right now, we don't have anybody indicating that they would like to make a comment. As I wait and give a few moments for folks to have an opportunity to indicate that they would like to make a comment, and we do have a few folks who have identified they would like to make a comment, so I'll call on them in a moment. Before calling on them, I would just remind board members, if you are not speaking, to go ahead and keep your microphones muted just to prevent any unwanted background noise or feedback. Friendly reminder as we're a bit into the meeting, and I haven't mentioned that again for a while. So we have a couple folks who would like to make a comment. The first individual who's indicated that they would like to make a comment is an individual identified as Francisco Leal. So Francisco, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment to make your comment, and then you will have 2 minutes. I will verbally cue you once I have unmuted your microphone. Francisco, you are unmuted now and can make your comments.
Thank you so much. Members of the board, my name is Francisco Leal. I represent the University of Moldova Dental School, and I'm also a parent of a student currently matriculated there. I did want to comment on AB 3315, which is sponsored by Moldova, and I did send a letter last week to the executive director outlining the reasons for this legislation. And it is intended to bring back the dental accreditation process back to this board. As discussed in your report, last year's legislation assigned the accreditation process to CODA, and more importantly, that legislation requires that any existing dental school, in this case you only have 2, Moldova and La Salle, will have to complete the accreditation process through CODA by January 1st, 2024. Now, Moldova and La Salle have many concerns with the decision to have CODA be the responsible accreditation renewal entity. It is a very expensive, time-consuming, cumbersome process and very uncertain. It can take up to 8 years. We believe that by requiring Moldova and La Salle to be renewed through CODA by January of 2024, these 2 universities are on a path of certain non-accreditation. I don't believe that is the board's intent. I also want to point out, and this is based on firsthand knowledge, that students attending Moldova and their parents are very concerned about this deadline. Particularly students who are slated to graduate in June of 2024 will now stand in limbo. I implore upon all of you to reassess the adverse impact of last year's legislation on the renewal accreditation of the only 2 schools that you have accredited, La Salle and Moldova. It is indisputable that
15 seconds
La
left.
Salle, okay. La Salle has been a remarkable success, and you know, there are many students who graduated and who are doing great service. This board vigorously evaluated and ultimately accredited these schools, and we believe an evaluation renewal process through this board gives both these schools a fair and timely opportunity for renewal. Thank you very much for.
All right. It sounded like the commenter was wrapping up the comments, but I muted him as the time had expired. So I will move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a public comment. That individual has identified themselves as a Bruce Witcher. Apologies if I mispronounce folks' names as I'm calling on you. So Bruce, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. Bruce, your microphone is unmuted now.
Just very briefly, a point of information. There's no committee analysis out yet. Usually a committee analysis will give you some clue as to where this legislation might be headed, and that should come out in advance of the hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that, I'll just double check, but I believe that concludes everyone who's indicated they would like to make a comment on this item. So I will close out the question and answer feature now, and I'll hand it back to you, Ms. Burton.
Thank you. So the bill has been moved and seconded. I'm going to ask the secretary to call the roll.
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. With a move to oppose 3315. Burton.
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai.
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren.
Abstain until I get more information.
Abstain. Laren. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, can you repeat?
Yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina.
Aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow.
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi.
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart. Stewart.
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You.
You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. The last bill is SB 1168.
Thank you. This is Gabe Nevin again. SB 1168 was actually amended on May 12th in the Governmental Organization Committee on its way out to the Appropriations Committee. So this is a follow-on to Senator Morell's legislation from last year that created a process for waiving fees for obtaining new licenses or renewing or replacing a license after an emergency. That was in response to the Camp Fire. This bill is going to establish a process for boards, is going to require boards to establish a process to expedite licenses for persons who meet specified criteria, including that they experienced an economic hardship resulting from an emergency declared within 365 days of the request. The bill also will require boards to establish a process for persons experiencing economic hardship as a result of an emergency caused by a virus to submit an application for deferral of fees that the agency may accept. And so originally this was a shall accept and required the deferral to go for 60 days following the end of the emergency. And so on the 12th, though, they amended it, and it is now just a permissive deferral of the fees. And so whereas before there were some serious concerns about the potential, because the board receives 95% of its budget from application fees and renewal fees, there was the potential for this bill, because everyone is going to suffer economic hardship as a result of this. There was a potential that everyone could ask for the deferral and the board would run out of operating expenses. That no longer applies. The board would be able to offer the deferral for 3.5 months for before the dentistry fund would run out, and for 4.4 months before the dental assistant fund would run out. But again, this bill no longer requires the board to bankrupt itself. So staff are recommending a watch position on this bill. And again, this is a worst case scenario that we would have 3.5 months to operate, because that assumes that all licensees defer their fees. And so staff are recommending a watch position. There is a potential scenario out there where this bill creates a lot of problems, but probably this will provide some needed relief for licensees who are suffering as a result of the COVID crisis.
I'm going to move a watch position on this bill, and I'm going to also make you aware of what Gabriel was saying earlier. This bill was heard in committee and passed out, do pass as amended to appropriation. So the motion is a watch. Is there a second?
Second, Marie.
Any board member comments? Any public comments?
Hello, this is the moderator. Thank you, Ms. Burton. I will activate the public comment feature now. So as a reminder to members of the public who are participating on the WebEx session, if you'd like to make a comment, you can do so by typing the phrase in the question box. You will then be called upon and you will be allowed 2 minutes to make your verbal comments to the board. If you will have those 2 minutes and you'll get a 15-second warning as well once we approach the 2-minute limit. As of right now, I don't have anyone indicating they'd like to make a comment, but I'll pause just a few more moments before turning that feature off and passing it back to Ms. Burton. Okay, we did not receive any request to make a public comment for that item. Ms. Burton, I pass it back to you.
Board Secretary, would you please call the roll?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll. It is a watch on Senate Bill 1168. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Lai, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Thank you. Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, aye. You? You? Did Dr. Yu lose connection?
This is the moderator. Oh, there you go. There he goes.
I just turned it on. Yeah, yes.
You? Aye. Motion
Yes.
passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. This concludes this agenda item. I'm going to turn it back to the board president.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. How's everybody doing? Do we need, I just want to check in, do we need another 10-minute break, or are we good to keep going for a while?
This is Karen. I'd like a 10-minute break if we can, please.
Let's take a 10-minute break. That brings us back about a quarter after.
Yeah, about 12:15.
Sounds good. Thank you. 12:15. Ask the executive officer to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. This is Karen Fisher, Executive Officer of the Dental Board. Before I proceed, I wanted to let the moderator know that the board president and I have discussed this item as well as item number 9 and item number 10 and we would like to limit the total discussion for each item to 40 minutes as we proceed, with the still requirement that each participant are allowed 2 minutes each.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, we are looking at agenda item 8, and I'm sure you've all read the memo. Basically, in an effort to combat the spread of coronavirus and in response to the stay-at-home order, 6 California dental schools have closed their clinics. These clinics are not only utilized to treat patients, but also for the administration of licensure exams. Since the closures, there have been significant interruptions to the administration of licensure exams for the 2020 dental grads. Examinations have been postponed until the stay-at-home order is lifted and students, patients, and examiners can be assured of a safe environment. During this time, REB and ADEX have made modifications to their examinations, which essentially have taken out the patient from the examination. REB and ADEX have asked the board to consider these modifications moving forward. At this time, staff recommends that the board request OP the study of these examination modifications to determine if the proposed non-patient format is legally defensible and psychometrically valid. Dr. Stewart, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. I would ask for a motion in a second.
This is Morrow. I move to direct staff to contact the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services to review the REB mannequin-based exam and the ADEX confidant examination to determine if the non-patient-based format is legally defensible and psychometrically valid, and to submit their report to the executive officer or board of the board at their earliest convenience.
Felsenfeld, I'll second that.
Thank you. We have the motion stated, and it is now time for board member comments.
Well, obviously, as you all know, this is an issue that is where I live on a regular basis, and this has presented a number of issues and concerns across the country, not only in California. The Office of Professional Examination Services has already reviewed these 2 examinations and has established their validity and their ability to be utilized as a licensing examination. The modifications that are made are necessary at this point in time. However, I hope that you all understand that there are components of this examination that have previously been approved by the Office of Professional Examination Services that are already on a mannequin. The endodontic examination has for years been on a mannequin. The prosthodontic examination is on a mannequin. What we're looking at here is basically the operative, the composite resin, and also the periodontics exam. So it's not a major change, and I think that it's important that we get the Office of Professional Examination Services opinion regarding this so that we can move forward.
This is Ross Lai. I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, Ross.
I understand, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I understand that the exam, the mannequin-based examination for ADEX and REB, we can address the class 2, class 3 How do we address the perio portion of the exam? Because it's hard to have a mannequin with calculus on it and tissue management at that point. Injections, how are we going to, test for injections, whether they're placing in the right position, are they in the canal? There's a lot of considerations with that regard. My basis is that I believe that perio or cleanings or root planings or perio treatment is the basis of dentistry. Everybody has to be proficient in that, and yet we cannot protect the public if they haven't ever. We can't test for the perio portion of the exam. So that's my concern.
In response to that, if I can, obviously I've never taken the examination because it was not around when I was getting my license. But my understanding is that the oral diagnosis and treatment planning, the ODTP section, has multiple questions relating to assessment items relating to periodontics. And it is the contention of, I think, the REB itself, that this is an authentic clinical examination. And as such, their psychometricians that develop the examination are of the opinion that this meets the clinical examination requirement. There are a number of states that accept that as part of their perio process. Therefore, they do not require a specific periodontal examination. Recent legislation has made it such that we are required to have 5 components on our examination. One of those is periodontics. And it is my understanding that REB's contention is that the ODTP section contains significant number of questions and assessment items to assess the clinical competence as far as periodontics.
I agree with that.
I think that's something that OPES needs to look at.
Yeah, Ross Lai again. My concern is that I think there are more cleanings and more root perio procedures done collectively than all the others above, as far as operative and crown and bridge, endo. My concern is that we're not protecting that part, and it's the most basic and the most sought after treatment is your cleaning. And if we can't test for that, I don't care if you cut a crown, but if the foundation is bad, I can see where that will preclude it to preclude problems. And actually, we really need to test for that. I mean, I don't see how we can not have that as far as a clinical exam, because if you think about once they get past their exam and get their licensure, they're out there working on people immediately. It's not like, you have a residency well, there are residency programs, but they are really licensed to go out and work on people. That's my concern.
Felsenfeld, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I read this, what we're asking OPES to do is to look at the restorative prosthetic component on a mannequin or on some mechanism, not so much perio. Am I incorrect about that?
My question is, how can we test for perio on an exam without a mannequin that has calculus or has gums or in need of an injection?
Well, I want to make sure that you're aware, of which I'm sure you are, that Canada for years now has had their licensing exam completely a written, a computer-based exam, and there's a couple of states that have also accepted that as far as licensure is concerned. So there is precedent that set that those necessarily are not required on as far as a patient is concerned to assess competence in that area. There's also some consideration from the standpoint of, yes, I agree with you that periodontics is an important part of dentistry, but there are decreasing number of dentists that assign that responsibility to their hygienist. And it is the dentist's responsibility to diagnose and treatment plan the need for periodontal disease. And it's probably not an activity that they do as much of as they used to.
Ross Lai. I understand that, and I understand the Canadian model, but we're talking about California, number one. We have a great population here of people. I also, not to undermine the perio, most of your hygiene is, I think they have a REB exam. I don't know how they're going to address this.
I'm sorry, board members, this is Sarah. We seem to have an issue with one of our board members having lost audio connection. So if the DCA moderator could please put the instructions back on the screen so we can get board member Burton back online.
Yes, we'll put the instructions on the screen. I see that Burton is still logged into the WebEx, but has simply lost her audio connection. So we'll display up on the screen in just a moment how to reconnect her audio.
Okay, and if you can just give me a moment, I'll reach out to her as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I realize there's a different opinion on this, and that's why I think that it's important that we refer this issue to our psychometric experts, which is the Office of Professional Examination Services, and allow them to determine and provide us with a recommendation as to whether or not the mannequin-based examination for both REB and ADEX meets the psychometric requirements for the state of California.
Yeah,
I agree.
This is Stuart. I'd like to interject that, in my office that are professional hygienists, that's a skill set that is just it's a very difficult skill set to achieve, in my opinion. And allowing someone to focus on that and just become very proficient at that skill set is doing our patients and protecting the public and doing the best service for our patients. That in the majority of offices, the dentist has accepted the ability of the hygienist to come alongside and help take care of that patient. And I know that I think that is something that is pretty much California wide. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll stop there.
Hi, this is the moderator. I see that Ms. Burton has reconnected her audio. Ms. Burton, could you give us a quick mic check just to confirm you're back online?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you.
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen. Did you want to continue to ask for any additional board comments?
Yes. Well, yes. I would like to hear from some other board members. We've heard Dr. Lai, you've heard from myself, you've heard from Dr. Morrow. I'd like to hear other opinions.
This is Larine. Yeah, I agree totally that the hygienist does a much better job than any of the other hygienists would be able to do. And I agree with you both that they are the best in the office to do this. But this exam, the rep, doesn't it also have another section where they're going to do comprehensive, the candidate knowledge for skills and ability, like in a clinical, like a full exam? Aren't they going to do like a full exam where they test, where they give you the x-rays and you have to do a diagnosis? Is that part of this rep exam?
Comprehensive treatment planning you're talking about, yes.
Yes, that if giving a good diagnosis for Perrier during that exam might be, available. And I think that's what's most important for dentists, to really be able to determine the periodontal stage and diagnoses, comprehend the disease, and then I always just hand them over to my hygienist after that. So I agree with you.
This is Steve Chan. Ross actually made an interesting point about the local anesthetic, even though that doesn't seem to be part of what's actually being tested. In order to get to that step of performing the operative part, the local anesthetic is somewhat assumed to be a step to get there. And yet that step can hurt someone. And at the highest calling for the board is to protect the public. So even if the testing were to take place before they can even do the operative, even though we're not testing for local anesthetic, there's a missing step here.
I had a question. Is this what we're looking at right now, what we're going to be voting on possibly? Is this a temporary solution for during COVID, or is this permanent?
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen Fisher, and I'll respond to that. At this point, I think the agenda item is referring to just what Dr. Morrow had essentially suggested, that direct staff to contact the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services to review the REB mannequin-based exam and the ADEX Confidant exam, to submit the report to the EO as soon as possible. So while these discussions have been interesting to note, and I think that some of this discussion could actually be agendized for a future meeting, we would pretty much rely on OPES evaluation to answer whether or not this would be a temporary fix or whether it would be a permanent change to the examination.
Thank you, Karen. And might I add that my motion was not asking the board to take any action other than requesting that OPES give us a report after they have reviewed the examinations, and that report then, the basis of that report would result in if we make any, if we do any action at all. So I'm simply trying to get some information so that we can either make an action or we can make an action, whether it's stay where we are or make some changes. But let's get some information from our experts.
This is Ross Sly. I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yes.
Is that okay, President Stewart? I want to implore everybody on our board to, and hopefully everybody has went onto the ADEX Confidant site. You can actually go in and review that tooth. As far as that's a new tooth that's not accessible to everybody at this point in time, as I I've listened to and read on their website. So, one, if the students, I mean, if they were planning to do it this year, there's no practice teeth. Okay, so the people that maybe will be taking that test have never cut into that tooth before. Now as far as we look on the REB side, most of the graduating students will probably have not cut on a typodont tooth in maybe 1 year or 2 years past. So it's kind of unfair to put that in at this point in time. So that's just a note that if any of us hasn't reviewed that, maybe we should review it and then have OPES review it. And I think that's maybe the basis of where we should start. Thank you.
This is James Yu. I understand the concern of Ross. From a clinician viewpoint, I think it's certainly important for us to test the candidates whether they have got the skill and the knowledge to do the best job, for the public. This is very important.
Hello, this is Levine. I took the foreign bench and we had a typodont to do class 2 and to do class 5 gold foil. Did we get an OPS exam for that? Review? That was a long time ago, but it was already approved for the dental board when we were doing the exams locally here in California. So I wonder what happened then. How did they grade that? How did they go about qualifying the typodont? But what was just mentioned also about they haven't used the tooth, I assume they can also go and practice, because I know I practice a lot on the typodont. I don't know if they have the ability to do that, but I would think they would.
Dr. Larry, the ADEX Carbodont tooth is not available at this time.
Okay, and for the REB?
REB is regular Typodont teeth, but we're looking as to moving forward from here.
Okay.
I do. This is Stuart. I do believe that both the REB and the ADEX folks are making provision to move forward in this area, and to once the sites and once the sites can be evaluated to be safe for all concerned, that the appropriate teeth will be available. So I don't see that as a block that they're not available today, because my understanding is that they will be available very soon, and hopefully in time to help us through this current situation where patient exams are not an option. So I would like to find out if any other board members want to say anything before we go to public comments, because I think we need to get to those as well. Hearing none, can we open this up for public comment?
Yes, this is the moderator, and I'll open it up for public comment. I also wanted just to provide a quick note that we will be having a switch out of our presenter who is presenting the slides at about 1 o'clock. We've got that all coordinated, so it should happen very quickly, but at 1 o'clock I may just briefly pause the public comments for us to switch that out. So just wanted to provide that note to the group. I will be activating the public comment window now, and have done so. So as a reminder, members of the public who would like to make a comment can do so by typing the phrase "I would like to make a comment" in the question and answer box. You will then be unmuted and you will have 2 minutes to make your comment to the board. I will provide a 15-second reminder when you are within 15 seconds of your 2 minutes being up. We have a couple folks that would like to make a comment now. And also, I would remind folks that as established and mentioned earlier, we have a 40-minute overall time limit for comments on this. So we'll start that timer as well now. I will be going to the first individual who would like to make a comment, and that is an individual who's identified themselves as a Mary McCune. So Mary, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and we'll start your 2-minute timer. Mary, you're unmuted.
Hi, and members of the dental board. Mary McCune with the California Dental Association. We're here respectfully urging the board to move for the permanent and expedient approval of the REB and ADEX mannequin-based examinations. The validity of the REB and ADEX mannequin exams were covered extensively in the meeting materials. However, we think it's important to remember that the licensing exams are a final but limited evaluation of the candidate's readiness to practice. And it's really a tool to complement the comprehensive evaluations that are completed as part of every school's assessment plan. The students are provided with thousands of formative assessments and several hundred summative assessments throughout dental school. Additionally, while the Practice Act requires various portions of dentistry to be examined, such as perio, it's not specific to the modality in which competency is proven. There's no requirement that any portion of the exam must be on a live patient. So we believe that the inclusion of perio as part of the ODTP would satisfy the requirements set in Section 1630. And lastly, CDA also believes that there is enough evidence submitted by REB and ADEX to establish the acceptance of the mannequin-based exam format, and that it doesn't pose, most importantly, it doesn't pose a patient safety risk. The findings from the field tests, the grading session, the surveys from the REB mannequin-based exam all provide evidence that it is comparable to the patient-based exam in both validity, reliability, and most importantly, legal defensibility. So in fact, the results were actually highly comparable to the results of the standard operative section in 2019, so last year's exam, including the percentage of examiner agreement and the candidate performance. So for these reasons, CDA strongly urges the dental board to approve these new exam formats and to move as expediently as possible to get OPES to do their review as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment. That is an individual who's identified themselves as a Shelby Maurice. So Shelby, I will be unmuting your microphone. Shelby, your microphone is unmuted now.
Good afternoon, Dr. Stewart and members of the Dental Board. I am Shelby Maurice, and I am a member of the class of 2020 at Western University of Health Sciences College of Dental Medicine. I've served as a CDA dental student representative for the last 4 years, and today have the honor of representing the unified voice of more than 800 graduating dental students in the state and from CODA-accredited schools across the country who are planning on applying for licensure in California. I come here today to respectfully urge the board to move as swiftly as possible to establish a timely pathway for this year's dental school graduates to obtain dental licensure in our state. We believe that the extraordinary circumstances of COVID-19 pandemic require extraordinary, creative, and nimble solutions. This is a time of uncertainty for many, and we want to ensure the health and safety of all, including students, patients, clinical faculty, and examiners. We are in strong support of finding a solution that does not compromise patient safety, that also supports the class of 2020, your newest colleagues, by ensuring fair and timely licensure. Your acceptance and implementation of the mannequin-based REB and ADEX examinations is exactly that. I would like to gently remind you that while we do not have years of practice, the term dental student in this case refers to individuals who have completed CODA requirements for graduation, which includes reaching competency in anesthesia and periodontal treatment. This is none of our first time picking up a handpiece, a scaler, or a syringe. We have been practicing dentistry for 2 years. We now seek a license to further contribute to public health. My class of new dentists trusts that all of you acknowledge the tumultuous and uncharted waters that we have been treading for months now, and the uncertainty we have regarding our lives and livelihood. We also trust that you will work together to ensure that this year's graduates overcome the challenges presented during this national crisis to maintain the dental profession's standard of excellence and to enable new dentists to secure licenses with no further unnecessary interruptions. We believe what the data has already shown, that these new examination formats check all of those boxes, treats new dentists and their licensure with respect, while upholding the board's commitment to patient safety and the integrity of our profession. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who has indicated they'd like to make a public comment. We have about 7 total individuals right now, so I will be calling on folks in the order that they made their request. So next I will be moving on to an individual who's identified themselves as a Murad Fauzi. So Murad, one moment, and I apologize if that's an incorrect pronunciation of your name. Your microphone is now unmuted.
Hi, the board members. I just want to reinforce what has been said, that we do a lot of competence in school. I'm graduating this year, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, competence should be okay. It should be enough to assess the students and make sure that they are okay with anesthesia and with the petty component. Also, I'm not sure why we're not discussing the loss key, because that could be a path to, especially that it was accepted in Oregon and Washington State. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the next individual who's indicated they'd like to make a comment. Individual who's identified themselves as Anthony Lum. Anthony, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Anthony, you're unmuted.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and board members. I heard you discussing about dental hygiene, and I just wanted to inform you that we are in a similar situation with our exams as well. We will be discussing this issue at our May 29th board meeting, which is coming up at the end of the month, and I'm going to request that OPES reviews what has been presented to us. REB has presented to switch over from a patient-based exam to the OSCE, which is a written exam. So we're going to have OPES review that as well, and then the board will determine whether to accept that exam. For right now, it's presented as on a temporary basis, so we'll see maybe down the line if it becomes permanent or not. But for now, it'll be on a temporary basis. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's indicated they'd like to make a comment. This individual has identified themselves as a Stephen Fredrickson. So Stephen, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. Stephen, your microphone is unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Stephen Fredrickson, and I currently serve as Dean of the College of Dental Medicine at Western University of Health Sciences in Pomona, California. I want to thank Dr. Stewart and the members of the board for considering this issue. In the interest of time, I will not replicate the things that have been said, but I support what Mary McCune has pointed out, as well as the newly minted Dr. Shelby Maurice. The only additional thing I would add is many states have already enacted various forms of temporary changes that modify or suspend their current licensing process in light of this worldwide pandemic. One state has allowed for graduation upon licensure from a code-accredited school, and another state will actually allow deans to certify that the students have met the clinical criteria for the board. So out of respect for time, I respectfully request that the board approve the motion that's on there. I would also ask for as much expediency from OPES as possible, and I think it will be demonstrated over time that this does not produce any additional harm to the public. Thank you very much, and with that, I'll close.
Thank you. This is the moderator. The next individual has indicated that they would like to call in. I just wanted to make folks aware that we have an ability to do a call-in feature. I'll describe that briefly. If you are currently connected through your computer, you can move your cursor down towards the bottom of the screen and then select audio connection, and then that will pop up the ability to connect via the phone. So if you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, select the ellipses there, the 3 dots, there should be an option that pops up for audio connection, which describes how you can call in. So the member of the public, Hong Lee, who was asking how to call in, that's how you can access it. And please identify that you'd like to make a comment later, and I will allow you to make that comment. I'll now move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment, and that individual is identified themselves as Bruce Horn. So Bruce, we will move on to you next. One moment, please. All right, Bruce, your microphone is unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Gabriel, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Thank you.
Thanks. I just wanted to make one comment, and I'll keep it short. I'm Director of Dental Examinations for the Western Regional Examining Board, and I wanted to mention that our psychometric overview that we provided to board members and certainly to OPES is intended to be an interim clinical dental examination. It was our desire to provide an alternatives for states in COVID 2020 to select to have their future colleagues have a pathway to licensure. As mentioned by Dr. Frederickson, there was a number of states that have approved alternatives with the condition that I think after this current year, they would revert back to the examination that they approved before. There may be new legislation in some of these states to then move forward with non-patient-based components as they see fit. Lastly, very difficult on the periodontal section to use any kind of plastic reproduction assessment of disease. The root plane scaling on the teeth with simulated gum tissue really isn't standardized and probably is not a reliable assessment. Other than until March, we in the examining agencies didn't see that we needed to actually have that in our bank as an alternative. I think there'll be some development in that area in the next 12 months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment. That individual has identified themselves as a Guy Champagne. So Guy, I would be unmuting your microphone in just a moment, and then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Guy, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. I wanted to give you a little bit update on the Compidon 2. So the Compidon tooth actually was not developed as a response to COVID-19. It was a 3-year process to develop a simulation of a tooth. So that's why there's a misunderstanding. There was no practice allowed on the tooth because we had to do a mode effect study that it was a replacement for a natural tooth. So therefore, treating natural teeth would be the practice, so to speak. They're widely available now, so that is not an issue. We have over 30 exams scheduled in just June, so and most of those are using the Compidon tooth. It is not like any other tooth, so if you've seen a Typodon tooth, you need to dispel that from your mind. The enamel is as hard as conventional enamel. You need a high speed with water to cut it. The dentin acts like dentin. The caries goes from infected caries to affected dentin to decalcified dentin without tugback to sclerotic dentin. There's variable penetration both axially along the DEJ and incisively and apically. In fact, no two teeth are the same. They're equivalent difficulty, but they are not the same. The restorative faculty have used them. Their comments were if they closed their eyes, they couldn't tell the difference between a natural tooth and the Compidon tooth. But we did plan ahead of time. It just happened that the mode effect study to validate that it replicated every criteria we could grade on our conventional exam in the same way, including modifications, which are a critical part of the exam. In fact, denied modifications are the best predictor of success of the exam. We were able to run the exam in the exact same process. We're welcoming OPES's review. That's how it should be done. Whenever we alter a modality, it's our obligation to prove it, and we wanted to prove it to our boards, which is why you see the mode effect study. But I do want to assure you the teeth are available. We're giving exams with them.
15 seconds.
And that's really my update, so thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll now move on to the next individual who's indicated that they would like to make a comment. This individual has identified themselves as Eddie Sandoval. So Eddie Sandoval, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Eddie, your microphone is unmuted. You have 2 minutes. One moment. There seems to be an issue in, oh, there you go. You're unmuted now, Eddie.
So nothing that I haven't
We can hear
already
you.
said. I'm currently a student scheduled to graduate this year. We're also scheduled to take exam on July 1st. I have a bunch of friends whose exam have already been like rescheduled or canceled, and I just want to remind everybody to put yourself in our shoes. Imagine
Eddie, your connection has broken up. I'm going to put you on mute again. One moment. So while I put Eddie on mute, I'll go ahead and move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment. And that is a individual who's identified themselves as a William Pappas, and I will circle back with Eddie at the end to ensure that he gets an opportunity to make a comment. I will mention that if you'd like to connect through the audio via your phone, that is recommended. And to do that, you can simply go to the ellipses at the bottom of the screen, select audio connection, and change your audio connection over to your phone. So Eddie, I will circle back with you at the end. The next individual who has indicated they would like to make a comment is a William Pappas. So William, I will be going to you now and unmuting your microphone. One moment, please. William, you are unmuted.
Thank you. This is William Pappas, president of ADEX. I wanted to address Dr. Lai's concern about the periodontal scaling. The periodontal scaling exercise has not made the cut score for at least the last 3 national occupational analysis for ADEX. In the first 5 years of practice, it's just not a skill that dentists, new dentists perform on a regular basis. The diagnosis and treatment planning, however, is essential, and that's covered along with other concerns in periodontics in our dental simulated exam, OSCE, a computer-based exam, and also among many other things on that, anything that we can't test on our hands-on exam is covered on our OSCE. Dr. Chan's concern about anesthesia, both anesthesia and pharmacology are thoroughly examined on the OSCE, and the periodontal section has actually been beefed up with additional questions just for that concern, since we have made it optional probably 8 years ago. Some states don't require it, other states still do, but if your statutes or regulations don't require a patient, the OSCE meets those requirements. As far as the competent, I've examined with the competent during the pilot exams. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. I was a skeptic. It's not the simulated natural tooth. It's incredible how close to the natural anatomy, the feel of enamel, dentin, as Dr. Champagne had said, sclerotic dentin, affected dentin. It's incredible. There's a pulp. You can have pulp exposures. You can have the candidate manage a pulp exposure. It's a great addition to our testing repertoire, and it uses the same criteria as our natural tooth patient examination. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's indicated they'd like to make a comment, individual who's identified themselves as a Hong Lee. I will be calling on you next, and I see that I believe you've changed your connection over to a phone connection. Yes, indeed you have. So I'll unmute your microphone now, and you'll have 2 minutes. You are unmuted.
Hi, this is Hun Lei. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I just want to chime in at this time, and I think the previous speaker already spoke about anesthesia. There's really no portion, or very little, on the test of both WEP and CDCA to test the anesthesia skills, of the candidate. Perio diagnosis is probably the most important thing. Many people have spoken before me to basically, say that the hygienists are usually the ones who do most of the hygiene in the practice. So assessing the clinical skills of cleaning is probably not the most important thing, in licensure exam. I think diagnosis is the most important, in this aspect. Someone mentioned about the plastic teeth. The students are not prepared to do the plastic teeth. Well, not every lesion is the same. Not every patient is the same. So if the students can demonstrate that they can prepare to preparations successfully on these plastic teeth that are very unfamiliar to them, I do think that that is a true demonstration of their very, very good hand skills and clinical knowledge. Just remember, the passing rate for both of these exams in the past few years have been ranging anywhere from 99% to 100%. So really think about it. Plastic teeth or no plastic teeth or live patients, the exam is just one way to measure the minimal competency of these candidates in order to enter into the profession. So
15 seconds.
This is the time. Okay, this is the time that I would encourage the board to have courage and the forward thinking to think out the box and approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next public commenter, and then we will take a brief pause to switch the roles of the presenter to a different staff person. So the next person who's identified they'd like to make a public comment is Gary Picard. So Gary, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Gary, your microphone is unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I represent Pacific Dental Services, one of the largest dental support organizations in the world. In California alone, we support almost 900 dentists in more than 260 practices up and down the state. I just wanted to say that we support CDA's position on this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This is the moderator. That concludes everyone who would like to make a public comment. I am just going to double check that the individual who had a connection hasn't joined back. Okay, so I do see that they were off and they have joined back. So I will allow Eddie Sandoval a opportunity to make a comment again. Eddie, I'm unmuting your microphone now. Your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Just wanted to comment that I'm currently a student that's going to graduate at the end of this year. And I want to vouch for my score, the IDP class at UCMF in Moldova. And all of us were ready. We've been ready for this test for a long time. We got our patients, we have everything. Most of us have practiced dentistry in our home countries. And as far as the perio guys you guys were talking about, we're going to cover that in the CTP test because we're scheduled to take the REB on July 31st. And just I wanted to remind you guys of how it was when you guys were in our shoes and, all the stress that's included with all the planning and preparations. But we've been practicing and preparing for this test for months now. So if this doesn't get approved, even temporarily, at least for this year, what's going to happen next year is it's going to keep piling up and piling up. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's enough reason to just let us, take the test on a mannequin base. And in my experience, just real teeth are a lot easier to work on than type-it-on teeth. And that's just in my experience. But just, again, put yourself in our shoes, and what do you think will happen in the future? Thanks again for listening, and good luck on the voting.
Thank you. This is the moderator. So we will go ahead and I understand we're at the point where we're probably going to be doing a roll call vote as well, but I'll let you clarify that, Board President. So while we're doing the roll call, we can go ahead and switch the presenter role so that we incur limited disruption. So if you'd like to do that, we can move forward with that.
Thank you. Well, I think we've had ample discussion. I think we've had a good dialogue. Appreciate everybody that's been part of this conversation. But I think it is time now to move on and to call the roll. So, Board Secretary, would you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Joanne Pacheco, Board Secretary. I will now call the vote. The motion details is we request that the OPES review the Rev mannequin-based examination and the ADEX confidant examination to determine if this format is legally defensible and psychometrically valid, and submit the report to the executive officer at the earliest convenience. I will now call for the vote. Burton?
Burton, aye.
Burton, aye. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Lai?
Aye, yes.
Lai, aye. Laren?
Laren, aye.
Laren, aye. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Morrow?
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco, aye. Stewart?
Aye.
Stewart, aye. You?
Stewart, aye.
You?
Yes. You, yes.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for that discussion. And now let's see, we're moving on to agenda item 9. The update regarding...
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen, if I may interrupt. Can we wait to see if when the moderator's ready? They were switching out.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Hey, Karen, we've switched out while that discussion was happening pretty seamlessly, even more seamlessly than I thought. So we're good to go.
Thank you. Agenda item 9, update regarding impact of COVID-19 on licensing. And Tina Valerie, are you ready to take this one?
I am, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Tina Valerie, Chief of Administration and Licensing. I will be presenting agenda item 9, update regarding impact of COVID-19 on licensing. Board staff have received correspondence from dental assisting, educational programs, licensees, and applicants regarding the impact of the COVID-19 virus on board licensees. Some areas in which dental and dental assistant licensing have been impacted by COVID-19 are in relation to dental assisting programs and courses. One question was whether didactic instruction could be shifted to an online delivery system. Programs were advised that according to California Code of Regulations, Section 1078.1b, educational programs may provide didactic instruction via electronic media, home study materials, or by live lecture. Therefore, they could explore alternative instructional and assessment methods. Board staff were also asked if programs could modify or reduce curriculum requirements or program length, specifically surrounding the number of hours required for laboratory and clinical experience. California Code of Regulations specifies that RDA programs must include 800 instructional hours, specifically 275 hours of didactic instruction, 260 hours combined laboratory or preclinical instruction, and 265 hours of clinical instruction. Programs were advised that the board does not have the authority to grant temporary provisions or waivers regarding the modification or reduction of curriculum requirements or program length, as regulatory requirements do not allow for alteration. Due to the shelter-in-place order, programs have reported delays in clinical and laboratory instruction, which has impacted their students' ability to complete the curriculum in order to graduate. In response to this, some programs are considering extending their programs into the summer months. An issue that has affected all applicants was the cancellation of the examinations administered by Psychological Services Incorporated, or PSI. On March 19, 2020, board staff were notified that PSI was closing their testing centers through April 30th to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. However, on April 13th, 2020, board staff received notification that PSI was resuming testing in response to the governor's executive order. PSI is currently offering all examinations on limited days and times at a select number of test sites and have reduced the testing capacity in order to allow for physical distancing at all sites. While on the subject of examinations, I would like to point out that the board has 2 RDA-EF clinical and practical examinations scheduled in June. Board staff have received several inquiries from candidates who are requesting to transfer their examination date next scheduled examination in August due to the impact of COVID-19 on their ability to complete the skills and hours required to obtain certification and their ability to practice, which is making them feel unprepared. Taking this feedback into consideration, as well as the current shelter-in-place order, board staff are currently considering canceling the June examinations and rescheduling those applicants to test in August. The last thing I wanted to touch on is that on March 31st, 2020, pursuant to the governor's executive order, the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs granted 2 temporary waivers that took effect immediately. The first was a 6-month temporary waiver in relation to certain renewal requirements for individuals whose licenses expired between March 31st, 2020 to June 30th of 2020. The waiver allows for licensees to complete the required continuing education courses by September 30th of 2020. To date, the board has granted 89 license renewal waivers. The second waiver temporarily waives any statutory or regulatory requirement for individuals seeking to reactivate an inactive license, which has not been inactive for more than 5 years, or restore a license to active status that have not been canceled for more than 5 years. This waiver includes the completion of continuing education requirements and fees to include renewal and delinquency fees. Licensees who are granted this waiver will be given a temporary license for a maximum of 6 months or until the state of emergency ceases to exist, whichever is sooner. To date, the board has received 1 request from an RDA who holds a canceled license, but a temporary license has not been issued at this time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this agenda item.
This is the moderator. I just wanted to mention that I had a little bit of background noise as the presenter was speaking, so I did mute a few board members' microphones. So just wanted to mention that in the event that anybody attempting to speak now doesn't realize their microphone is muted.
Dr. Stewart, this is Karen. Are you ready to go for public comment?
Yes. All right, this is the moderator. I will go ahead and activate the public comment period now. As a reminder, anybody who would like to make a public comment can do so by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box that should now appear in the lower right of your screen. We will then call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. And I believe, as previously stated, that we would have a 40-minute time limit for this public comment item. So that will be enforced as well. I'll pause for just a few more moments as no one has indicated they would like to make a comment on this item yet. Okay, we do have 1 individual who would like to make a comment. So a Dennis Romero. Or Denise Romero, I should say. I apologize. I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. 1 moment, please. Okay, Denise, your microphone is unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to make a statement. I'm a program director for Pasadena City College in the California area. And we've just been notified that our summer has now been suspended as well. Our dental assisting program was about 4 weeks into our spring semester, which, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. 4 weeks into our spring semester, and so now our internship hours have been suspended. Our lab and clinical has been suspended, so we were not able to complete our corneal polishing patients or our pit and fissure sealant patients. We were in great hopes that we would be able to return as soon as the stay-at-home order was lifted. And now we just got word from the chancellor's office that they will be suspending our being able to return to campus until fall, and even fall is in question. So where we left it, our students were not able to complete some of the lab competencies, and we're finding that this is greatly going to impact them, and they're not going to be able to not only graduate, but go back into the dental field, which they were all supposed to graduate in June. So there's a lot of restrictions on the Dental Practice Act that requires the RDA students to perform lab duties in class rather than virtual. So as educators, we're really struggling with the language. For example, drying of endodontic canals, rather than being able to offer virtual simulation, we have to actually be able to do it physically in lab. So we are really struggling with a lot of these regulations on being able to continue. So although great deal to put a lot online and offer a lot of virtual simulations, there's still a lot that is not allowed, as well as the patient requirements. So the pit and fissure sealant requires patients as well as the
15 seconds.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No one else has indicated that they would like to make a public comment, so I'm closing out the public comment window for that agenda item. Board President, I throw it back to you.
Yeah, and Denise, thank you for those comments. We will now move on to agenda item 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments on items that are not on the agenda?
Thank you. This is the moderator. I will go ahead and open up the public comment question and answer feature again to collect those comments. So as a reminder for folks, if you would like to make a comment, go ahead and type the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question and answer box that should appear in the lower right of your screen. You will be called upon, and then you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. I will remind individuals that this public comment item has a 40-minute overall time limit, as mentioned earlier in the board meeting. So we do have an individual who would like to make a comment. Individual has identified themselves as a Gary Picard. So Gary, I'll be unmuting your microphone in just one moment. Gary, you are unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello again. The board president so eloquently began today's meeting recognizing the changes and challenges we've all faced related to COVID-19. I'd like to propose, if the board hasn't already, that dentists in California be allowed to administer diagnostic tests. This would be especially helpful and beneficial now due to the current pandemic. I would hope that it would be considered to be within a dentist's scope of practice. The ADA, AGD, and many others on industry have already recommended similar action. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. As of this time, no one else has indicated they would like to make a public comment, so I will be closing out the public comment option. All right, I will give it back to you, Board President.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to agenda item 11, board member comments on items not on the agenda. Are there any board member comments on items not on the agenda? Hearing none. Thank you all. That concludes the open session portion of this meeting. The board will now recess into closed session. At the conclusion of closed session, the board will return to open session for the purpose of meeting adjournment. Due to technological limitations, adjournment will not be broadcast. Adjournment will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. So thank you.